So I will do a short stream, or maybe not so short, because I wanted to go through all the games that I played in a simul. And there was a theme in this simul. It was the Morra Gambit. So I'm just gonna try to find out if everything is working. Let's see. And I'm not sure if it's announced on lead chess or not. Who knows? Let's see if we got something here. Yeah. All right, so basically I have a student who wants to start playing the Sicilian, and I'm definitely not an expert in the Sicilian. It's an opening that I like, but it's also very it's a big opening, and you need to know a lot of anti-Sicilians, and you need to know the main lines, so it's quite a big project. But I decided to have a look at some of these anti-Sicilian systems. And if you're playing the Sicilian and you're facing a reasonably aggressive player, then there is a chance that they might use the Morra Gambit, of course. So I did some research, and I found this interesting game between Ken Smith, and he is one of the founders, I guess, of this opening with the Ken Smith-Morra Gambit, I guess. And he was playing a game against Evans, an American Grandmaster. And this was, I'm not sure if it was 71 or 72, but it was sometime in the 70s. And Evans, he actually beat Ken Smith, and Ken Smith's favorite Morra Gambit. He played 6 a6. And we're going to see this also happened in the first game in this simul. So it's basically this move in the sixth move, a6. And the point of this move is to try to control this e5 break from white, because otherwise a very natural move it would be to just play knight f6 in this position. But the problem is e5. It gives black a lot of problems, and so this move is a little bit dangerous. But if we go a6, it takes away a lot of these lines where the knight can jump to b5. So the main point is to get a more solid position and then just try to avoid all the pitfalls in this opening. So I decided to make a simul on this theme, and the starting position was basically from this point where black accepts the gambit, and as soon as white takes, then yeah, so we just get this position. And we played 12 games against a number of opponents, and so we're gonna have a look at those, because I took a look at all the games, even though some just left very early, so those we're not gonna analyze, of course. The first one was against Uncle Zebra. What was the rating of this guy? This was actually 2040, so it was a high-rated guy, reasonably. So I went knight c6, bishop c4, d6, knight f3, and then this move a6 that I think it's called the Evans defense. So it's quite popular. There are some videos on chess.com as well describing this move. And I don't remember the guy who made that video, but anyways. So in this game, my opponent played short castle, and now I think black is ready to play knight f6 because you have more control of the position. So you're basically ready for this e5. And one of the main points with this Evans defense is that black is really trying to control this pawn lever e5. He's trying to control the dark squares, and if white is able to play e5, it's basically under black's control if this happens. So in this game, white played queen c2. The normal setup, I would say, I don't know why my screen is jumping all over the place. That's annoying. The normal setup is for white to play queen e2 and then to play rook fd1. And then he's trying to use this pin on the d file. He's trying to get this e5 in. And the tactics are usually favoring white in this kind of position. But in this game, my opponent played queen c2, which is a bit unusual. I played bishop g4, which is maybe it's not the best move. And I don't know too much about these positions, but I analyzed it, and one of the problems is that white has this queen b3 move, because now he's getting this battery with a queen and the bishop against f7, and he also has pressure on b7. So let's see what's going on. Oh. All right. Okay, so I got some messages. Let's see. Okay, I should do like this. Yeah, so white has pressure against f7 and pressure against b7. And e6 is a move I need to play basically to cover f7. Queen takes b7, knight a5, queen b4. And the problem in this position is I would really like to play d5. I thought about it during the game. The problem is that white has this in-between move, because when I play d5, I attack the queen and I also attack this bishop. But the problem is white can just play queen a4 check and get out of this problem. So this is the reason that I should probably, in this position, I should just play bishop d7. Because if black plays the same line, queen b3, then I can go e6 to blunt the bishop on c4 and the queen. And when he takes, I got the same line with knight a5, queen b4, but here d5 is actually winning. So this is the difference, that this queen a4 doesn't work in this line if I put the bishop on d7. So basically after queen c2, black's proper response is to just play bishop d7, and then I think you're fine. So you can continue with maybe rook c8 or something like this, and black should be just fine. I don't really see that the queen on c2 is an improvement on the classical setup. I think queen e2 rook d1 is the classical setup, and that should be preferred. So in the game I played this bishop g4, which is not good. Knight a5, and now I actually have to take on c4. And if I want an equal position, I should just take on f3, and I guess that's just fine. Maybe take on f3 and maybe play queen c8 or something like this, and black is totally fine. Unfortunately, I messed up, so I played queen c8, queen a4, queen d7, takes. And from this point, I think that white has a comfortable position. So white took the opportunity to move the knight to the center because black didn't take. And white is probably slightly better because even if I have the bishop pair, those bishops are not very, they look a little bit clumsy. So it's very easy for white to play f3, and this bishop is not really going to find a good placement. And it's not easy for black to break the position with d5 because white has a lot of control of d5. And if you can't play d5, then the bishop is not really going to get an edge here in this kind of position. Alright, so after knight d4, I think it's not so interesting to look at the continuation because black could have just played bishop d7 early against queen c2. We're going to look at the second game. This was a 1970 player, so quite good. Let's see if we got something in the chat. Yeah. All right. Knight f3, d6, bishop c4, a6. This is the setup that I prefer to play. Yeah, so Emmanuel is coming up soon here. I think that's the next game. That's correct. So yeah, a6 setup, and in this game white went queen b3 immediately. So this is a little bit more comfortable for black because now the bishop is still on c8 protecting b7, so the only thing I have to worry about is this f7 square. So the next move is very natural. I just play e6. And now black is blunting this battery. And then he can always gain some time and maybe jumping to a5, maybe taking the bishop. So white also has to be a little bit careful because he sacrificed the pawn and he really needs to move forward. He needs to make some progress, otherwise it's just a pawn down. So the position is getting a bit dangerous for white, and white played knight g5. So he's basically going all in for some kind of attack that doesn't really exist. And black is quite comfortable here. The bishop is protecting, and it's very obvious that white is trying to get some firepower against these pawns, but I don't really believe it. b5 was not the best move. Actually, I didn't understand during the game how powerful this knight a5 move is, but the thing is that white can't really protect his bishop. If he plays a move like queen b4, so I guess d5 should be winning because I'm hitting the queen, and if he plays a4, I guess bishop d7 should be winning, right? I hope. Yeah, it's obviously winning. So knight a5 was really strong here. It would be totally game over probably. But of course I messed it up. I played b5 and white took on f7, which is a little bit maybe some sign of desperation because white is being driven back. So he tries to go forward, but there is not enough firepower to actually do this. So I just take this piece, I take another piece, and then knight d4. So the simplest here is just to take on b5 and try to trade the queens, and you're basically up a lot of material. So this is totally game over from here. So we don't have to continue this line. So this was very early queen b3. It was actually from this point. The standard way for white to play is just short castle, queen e2, rook d1. But we see the first games white tries a little bit different kind of setup. And that's why it's interesting to play this thematic simul exhibition, because you get people who are not really prepared for the main line, so they try different kind of systems, and that means that by looking at them you get a broader understanding of this opening and what could actually happen in a tournament game. So I think it's better to practice on lead chess before I get these strange moves in tournaments. So we're gonna look at Emmanuel's games or Steffi's game here. And let's see if we got something here. Oh, knight f5. Yeah, knight a5, right. Yeah. So knight a5 is winning. I'm probably going to get a second monitor for this. It's going to be easier to check the chat while going through the games, because now I'm just using my mobile phone and it's not totally optimal because I'm not getting notified when I get chat messages. But yeah, so this is Beast of Benin on Twitch playing white. And yeah, knight f3, d6, bishop c4, a6, knight f6. Okay, so this early e5, the whole system is based on trying to face this kind of moves. So I'm not sure if it's Perelstein or there is some grandmaster who proposed an early e5. Might have been in this situation, I'm not sure. But yeah, so I've looked a little bit on this early e5s, of course, before I had a simul. So I will take queen takes d8, knight takes d8, and knight takes e5. So Emmanuel offered a draw here, and I jumped on that opportunity because I wanted to get rid of some games early, so I didn't mind playing an early draw here. But in this situation, I think it's Mark Ginsberg who made a video series on chess.com. He's an international master, and he proposed that black should play knight g4 in this position. I can definitely understand knight g4 because the idea is to pick off the active pieces that white has. So if white moves back, maybe knight f3, then definitely bishop e6 would be interesting. And if he moves back with this bishop, then you basically just activate all your pieces and you're still a pawn up. So it's pretty good. But the problem is a little bit if you play knight g4 that he could just take, and then I don't really like this kind of jumps with knight d5 and trying to get into these squares. I mean, even if you play rook c8, so maybe knight b6, it feels just a little bit uncomfortable. But I think a better move would be to play bishop e6 immediately. And if bishop e2, then just g6 and you try to develop, because now you have control of this knight jumps. You have control over d5 and b5. So white can't immediately, he can't do anything immediately, and then you should be able to play bishop g7 and castle, which I think is okay for black. So in this situation, I got a draw offer and I took it immediately. Oh, yeah, that's great. That's good, Emmanuel, that you actually read a book on it, because it makes the game more interesting. But it's also interesting with those opponents who are not prepared at all, because you have no idea what they're gonna do. But I appreciate that you read a book about this. So yeah, I think this line is perfectly fine for black. It's an endgame, it's a pawn up, so you don't have a big challenge for black in this line, I believe. The next game, number 4, it was knight c6 and white resigned. So that chapter we're going to cover very quickly. We're not going to spend any time with that. The next one is Little Rat. Interesting name. 1686 rating. This is chapter 5. So the game went knight c6, knight f3, d6, bishop c4, a6, our standard setup. So this guy played bishop e3. So it's quite interesting, and I had a look in the master database and I found some player, maybe Iranian player, who played this on a higher level. But I would say that it doesn't pose a lot of problems, because The only pawn lever that white has in this opening is to try to get e5 in. And when he puts the bishop on e3, then he doesn't get any power in this push. Because normally you maybe have the queen on e2, maybe you have the bishop on f4, so everything is set up to push the e-pawn. But with the bishop on e3, it even makes it more difficult for white to push this pawn at some point. So knight f6. I would suggest a setup with knight f6 and then maybe e6, maybe bishop e7, probably bishop d7. After you make those moves, you could just jump to g4 and try to get into e5. So I know it's a lot of arrows, but I checked those lines and they look totally fine for black. So this easy setup, knight f6, e6, bishop e7, bishop d7, and then maybe if you get the chance, knight g4, knight e5. So if you get this setup and white tries to take on e5, then you can just take back with the d pawn actually. So you will get double pawns on e5, e6. You just finish your development, and at some point you might even jump to d4 with knight to give back the material, because then white can win this pawn, but you end up in an endgame with a bishop pair, and those kind of positions are always a little bit better for black if you get the bishop pair with equal material and a symmetric pawn structure, but you got the bishop pair, which it means that you can trade the rooks, you can trade the queens, and you will always keep this advantage based on that the bishops are more powerful than a bishop and a knight. So yeah, I'm not going to go into this game too much. We could look a little bit, I guess, but yeah, in the game white played h3, b5, bishop e7. Yeah, so we're not going to go through with this. I think it's more the goal is not to look at exactly what happens in the game, but we're doing more of an opening examination to check how I could improve my play and what is the best play for black against those different kind of setups from an opening perspective. So we're going to have a look at the next chapter. This is Kerem. So it's quite nice that all the games were different. So there's a lot of variety in the responses. So what's going on here? Close of chapter, I suggest e6 and then knight f6. Yeah. All right, Kerem, what happened here? d6. Yeah, bishop e5. That's an interesting move. Haven't seen it before, but then again, I'm not a big expert in the Sicilian, so I don't play this a lot. I would say that the logic behind white's opening is to get to place all his pieces as active as possible, and this is why the grandmasters usually play bishop c4 to get this active diagonal. But if you put the bishop on b5, you're not really getting the attacking chances that white needs when he sacrificed the pawn, but it's more likely to trade off some pieces, and all the trades are basically in black's favor. So white should really try to place his pieces actively, but he shouldn't invite any trades, and bishop e5 is really inviting trades, I believe. So I immediately played a6, asking the bishop a question, what he wants to do with it, and if he just takes on c6, it would be kind of in black's favor. So he played bishop a4, bishop d7, bishop takes, b takes. Already now I think black is more than fine. I don't think white has any compensation at all for this sacrifice. He doesn't even have the d5 square. So evaluation from the computer is minus 0.6, minus 0.7. which I think is very generous. But yeah, still black is clearly better, and I don't really see the compensation. But the game continued with short castle, and e5 is totally fine because you're not leaving the square d5 behind, because you got this pawn here. Rook e1, bishop e7, knight e2, knight f6. Yeah, so what about this position? Let's see, the valuation is minus 2.3. So white has pawn down and absolutely no compensation because black has a better pawn center. The only thing that black needs to be careful with is not to get any weaknesses when he's trying to advance the pawns. I mean, you would like to play d5 and e4 at some point, but you don't want to give white any way to take advantage of this, so you need to do it slowly. But otherwise, black just has a clear advantage here. So that was chapter 6. Let's see what happened in the next one. Steffi, maybe you can check if Leeches, if they announce the stream. If you can check that, that would be good to know. Maybe Leeches is showing the microphone or something, I'm not sure. So this is Ermin. I think he's a Bosnian player actually, and he's been playing in a couple of my simuls. So we're going to look at this game: knight c6, knight f3 d6, bishop c4 a6. So this is a little bit more mainstream, short castle. This is what is played on a higher level usually. Knight f6, bishop f4, e5. So according to this, there is a book called Mayhem in the Morra. It's written by Mark Esserman, I believe, who is quite a strong player. He's an international master. And I think he suggests knight g5 in this position to be the best. In this game, my opponent played bishop takes e5. And I don't really see the point of this sacrifice. I'm just going to take it. Maybe white was thinking that he has some tactic with bishop takes f7 and taking my queen after the d file is opening up. But the problem is that this knight is protecting the queen, so it doesn't work. I just took here, and queen takes, knight takes e5, and then bishop e6. So of course I want to trade some pieces here, and I want to trade off the active pieces. I want to hit this knight, this bishop, and try to control this knight from jumping to some important squares. So bishop e6 is typical. I don't know if it's the best move. Looks like it. Bishop e6. Yeah, computer thinks it's -3, so there shouldn't be a lot of compensation here. All right. So rook d1, b5, knight d5 takes. Yeah, I think the best move here is actually to play f6 and put the king on f7, but it doesn't matter because black is totally winning here. So we're going to move on. I lost that game actually, and the reason was because of time management, so I need to resign some games, which is crazy of course. But Asa Jamal, chapter 8, we're gonna have a look at that one. Let's see, knight f3 d6, bishop c4 a6, short castle, knight f6, rook e1. Rook e1 is also interesting. It's a little bit awkward setup because it would make sense if white is really trying to play e5 at any cost, but And it might also make sense if black plays e6 and maybe white can play knight e5, and if you take, you open up the e file. So I mean, those kind of ideas are possible, but I don't really believe it. So e6 is probably perfectly fine. If e5, then I could just take, you know, this kind of position. It's quite fine for black. It's a pawn up, I guess. And yeah, you don't mind that you lose the right to castle. If you already trade the queens, there is not much that white can do to attack this king anyway. It's more of an endgame type of position. So if knight d5 here, it looks a bit tricky, but you can just play bishop e7. If it takes, I mean, this kind of stuff. This square looks a little bit weak, but there is no knight that can jump in because white already traded his knight, and this knight, it takes very long time for it to get to d5. So this position is totally fine. Evaluation here is minus 0.5. So there's a little bit of compensation, maybe based on this backwards pawn, but not too much, I would say. Yeah, what happened in the game actually? Bishop g4. So this game was finished very quickly. I'm not sure exactly what happened. Yeah. Oh, right. Okay, so white just gave up here. I don't understand it, but okay. We're going to move on to John. This was actually the most interesting game, I think. So we're going to have a look at this game. Let's see. So what happened in this game? Knight f3, d6, bishop c4, a6, bishop f4, knight f6, castle. Okay, so this is the line that I think this Mark Esserman suggested. And you're not supposed to be able to play e5 because of this response knight g5. So white is sacrificing this bishop, but he gets this pawn. So there's a lot of pressure on f7. But I think it's totally fine for black, probably, to take on f4. And queen e7, I think, is the best. Knight takes. Knight e5 looks sensible, putting the piece in the center and trying to drive this guy away. So if black can pick up this knight, so he should be fine. And I don't see this knight getting out very easily. Bishop b3. I played g6. I think this is fine. I got some ideas of bishop g7, take this knight. Knight d5. Now I made a pretty bad mistake. I played queen g7, so I really can't afford this kind of move. But the best move is to take on d5. And if bishop takes d5, then f3 is quite interesting. If white takes, then I got this beautiful bishop h6. And it's quite obvious that white doesn't have any dark square control at all. So it's very dangerous if black gets the bishop to f4, you might be able to start a kingside attack because white has just a total lack of dark square control. So the normal thing would be to try to go after this knight, but I think bishop h6 is much stronger because this knight is not going anywhere. After bishop h6 you control f4 and it gets very dangerous for white, I think, this kind of position. And maybe there was an improvement here with queen takes d5, and I didn't look too deeply in this position, but I think rook b8 would be the best, probably. And then you got some moves like this, queen g7. So it's still complicated, but I think it's what is the evaluation here? Slightly better for black. Yeah, super complicated, but black should be okay. So it's not something that you want to have in a blitz game if you're not prepared, but if you have looked at this position, then it's totally playable with some help from the computer. So really interesting game by John. I actually talked to this guy afterwards. I sent him a message today, and he said that it was his brother who has around 1900 who played this game, and maybe his name is Piper, the guy who has this, or his name is John here. But very interesting game anyway, so very happy he joined the simul, so we got these interesting positions. And yeah, this number 10, it was not that interesting because it was resigned in this position. And I think the last games were maybe the same here. Yeah, knight g5, right, e6, and white resigned. So I'm not sure about this early knight g5. Is probably not very good. e6 is what you're supposed to play, and you could go b5. Yeah, this is not, is minus 1.5, so it's not a good position. So these kind of attacks are quite common, that low-rated players, they see a threat that they can do, but if you cover this threat, it's just gonna be like a blowback. So knight g5 is not developing anything, and it's very easy to take care of this threat, and then the knight is just misplaced. So this kind of moves I wouldn't recommend. And then you got Davey, this game. So this is the final chapter. Oh, so we got Roger here. He loves gambits, I think, if it's the famous Roger from Malmö, the guy who used to play against Svidler in some blitz games in Denmark. Let's see, knight c6, knight e2. Okay, so this opponent has a 1040 rating, and I would say that knight ge2 is definitely not a good move, because white can't develop his pieces in harmony after this move. The knight is just preventing the bishop from getting out, and white is not getting this fast development that he needs when he sacrificed the pawn. So black plays d6, queen a4, a6, knight d5. So white has broken a couple of rules in the opening phase. All the moves were legal, but he broke basically all the principles by playing those moves. Knight e2 is blocking his other pieces. The queen has been brought out way too early, and he's moving the same piece more than once. So he's breaking basically all the rules in just a couple of moves. But we will see something interesting here, and I was actually losing this game. So I played e6, and then he played knight d4, super complicated. And the best move here was bishop d7, but I actually took this guy. And then I went b5, knight takes b5, a takes b5, and then queen a5. I thought this was fine because I'm getting 4 light pieces, and yeah, so this position should be fine. But I guess I underestimated the position a little bit, because white took, bishop takes b5, bishop d7 seems very natural, and here actually white has a really good move. So basically white can win if he finds the right move. So maybe Roger can find the move if he's still online. Do we have any suggestions? Yeah, rule breaker. Do we have any suggestions for white in this position? What do you think white wants to do? Because there's actually a winning move here. Luckily, my opponent had 1000 rating, but if he would have found this move, I would have had a lot of problems, I think. Do we have any suggestions? Yeah, bishop a6 is an excellent move. Bishop a6 actually takes away the b7 square, and next white is just going to play bishop d2 and take this knight. So it's those pieces are not going to help black defend this knight. So very good, Roger. Roger is one of the most talented players in south of Sweden, I would say. And he's a beast in blitz. He's all tactics. So we're not going to look too much on the continuation here, because I should basically have played bishop d7 here, and I was totally winning. All right, so that was just going through some simul games, trying to get an understanding of all the different scenarios that you might face as black against the Morra Gambit. So I think this Evans defense is a very solid way to face the Morra Gambit. We didn't see too many main lines, and this study I'm probably going to make public. So most of my studies are not public, but this one I thought I can just have it public, so maybe some people will comment on the games or something. And I'll probably do more of this kind of stuff after I played themes in simuls. I might go through them and make a stream about it, basically. Okay, so thank you very much. Yeah, you could definitely challenge Roger, I guess. Yeah. All right, so thank you very much, guys. And about the fan club, I'm trying to get it closed so we can rebuild it. And I sent a message, so we're probably, as soon as a moderator of Lichess finds out that one of the founders had his account closed, then maybe we can close the fan club and build a new one. All right, so thank you very much, and see you soon.